Welcome to Bloodbath & Beyond. Today we review Fear Street Part 2, 1978. Find the Truth.
Directed by Leigh Janiak, starring Sadie Sink, Emily Rudd, Ryan Simpkins, McCabe Slye, Chira Aurelia, and Ted Sutherland. In an attempt to figure out what's going on with Sam, Dina and Josh go to meet Cindy, who tells her story of what happened to her and her sister in 1978. So the whole film is a flashback to Camp Nightwing, which has both Sunnyvale and Shadyside campers trying to escape an axe-wielding killer. And at the same time, the counselors are trying to figure out if this is all the work of Sarah Fear or a new Shadyside killer. So what do we like? Much like part 1, the nostalgia for the era was well captured here. Not only from the soundtrack, but also the color palette and the way that people are dressed.
Maybe she was on something.
Shh. Drugs are peaceful, not violent.
And I liked our cast. I thought we had a great variety of characters who you could get behind and who you kind of hope would get killed from a camp slasher. Sheila and the gang?
Yeah, she's like the Judy from Sleepaway Camp, the little bitch.
And I'm giving a special shout out to McCabe Slye. He was awesome. I really liked him as Tommy Slater. He seems like such a nice guy who you like are hoping that he doesn't actually get possessed. Seeing like an origin story style is just fun.
Before John talked about that, we discussed whether or not this was a spoiler. It's not really, because he was in the first one. The same is true is something that I pointed out in our other review, where we knew that Nick Good was going to be a final boy because he's in this movie.
If by some chance down the line they do one with Ruby Lane, you're not going to be shocked that Ruby Lane is the killer. I liked that we had Ruby's mom as Nurse Lane giving us all of our exposition and having this like occult book.
That's what I like about the way that this whole story is told. I appreciated how much information we got about what's going on because they did a really great job setting it up for what's to come in 1666.
It's not just a diary. It's a map.
And I like that we had Ziggy and Cindy at the forefront. Two sisters, one's a counselor, one is going to the camp, and Ziggy's being harassed by a group of prick Sunnyvalers saying that she's a witch.
I'm out. They just tried to murder me.
Because as an audience, you know that a witch is actually involved somewhere here, and you're just like, oh, you got the wrong girl. And I just think that there's a lot of really cool things happening in this film. Not only from just like that story, but also just there's like a fetch quest where all the kids are like having their own game, the camp wars, and there's kids missing, so the counselors need to try and figure out where are all the kids, and you know, kids die.
The body count is high in this one. The one thing that this series as a whole has been doing so far is when a character dies, it means something, because you're like, I can't believe that character just died.
One way or another, you're gonna die tonight.
Another thing I really liked about this film was how it was shot. They did a fantastic job with what's known as the Hitchcock zoom. But here, when you have Tommy Slater, you could see that distance, the separation and the distortion of where he is in the background to create that uneasy moment. And I thought they did a great job with the cinematography.
Look at this segue. When you talk about the separation, this movie separated itself from 1994 with the lighting most specifically, where we used to have the blues and pinks, which everyone's calling bisexual lighting these days. In 1978, we have the greens and the oranges. And I absolutely love this look because it feels different. Not only like right out the gate is everything softer, they use a lot of oranges and browns, but when things get more intense and they use this extra green lighting, it just feels so much different. Like you'd be able to see a shot in this movie and know that it was from this one and not the one that you saw last week.
Which I would like to counter. One of my big dislikes in the first film is the fact that we got a backstory with Nick Good and he does have an important role to play throughout this story, because if you look at the first one as a standalone, nothing made sense with his character and it was very annoying. But now seeing him in this film is just like, okay, now it's all coming together. That's the tough issue that you're facing when you're dealing with like multiple films and multiple stories to tie it all in together, is one film will purposely leave out lots of details and as a standalone it's annoying, but bringing it all in together, it just makes sense in the end.
Which leads me to the ending of this film. I'm not gonna get into it. I think there's a pretty good reveal that happens. And then even seeing a little bit of what's gonna come for the next film really has me excited. Now, what didn't we like?
I was really disappointed in the lack of other killers, in particular, Billy Barker. Nothing against just Tommy Slater, but you kind of want to have that variety because you've already been given it in 1666. None of these killers actually exist. So there's like a big gap where we're not gonna see the milkman. Ruby Lane isn't gonna have her big moment. But for me, it was Billy Barker. When I saw him in the first one and how cool and aggressive he looked, I'm like, man, I wanna see what this kid's backstory is. And because knowing where the direction that this franchise is going, I can't see us having a standalone film or just him being in it.
I think the fast pace of 1994 screwed me up and changed my expectations of what this movie would be.
You swore. It's becoming a habit.
I did like the slower pace, but at the same time, it was jarring to some degree. Like, it was much, much slower than I anticipated. I don't know exactly how to pinpoint this dislike, but the pacing was odd to me, despite how much was actually happening. Because I did like the lore. I did like the way that they were delivering the story. And I liked all the characters, but it did feel slow.
And it's strange to say, but the kills, as good as they were, it just felt a little repetitive because it was basically the same thing over and over again. It's like a counselor turning around and being like, oh, hey, Tommy, dead. Oh, Tommy, dead.
I would agree, and especially after seeing like the bread kill from the first one, this one definitely didn't deliver on the kills. Despite what I see on Twitter, a lot of people on Twitter are like, oh, this has way better kills. What? There's like a decapitation and a couple axe smashes to the face that were pretty impressive, and that was about it. Now it's time for our final thoughts and ratings. While I didn't love this movie as much as 1994, it was still an excellent slasher. It paid the right respects to the slashers from the 80s, even though this was 1978, and it had its own unique vibe. I really enjoyed the soundtrack, the look of the film, but most importantly, I really enjoyed the story and the information that we got from this to set up for our finale in the next film. However, something felt off to me, and I really can't place it. The whole film just felt really slow, even though it's not really a slow film. It's not a bad movie, and you definitely should watch it, but it just wasn't great to me. So I'll give this 3 friendly wardens out of 5.
Can I get you a water or a juice box maybe?
We're fine.
When talking about this film, it's hard not to compare it to part 1 because you know how much this is tied in as a franchise. As a standalone, there is a lot to like and there is a lot to dislike from it. I liked our characters. I thought everyone did a fantastic job. Cinematically, it was beautifully shot. They did a lot of cool things and they made it feel as though it was in the 70s. I did really like Tommy Slater as our killer. I just felt as though the kills weren't as impactful. I would have appreciated more of the previous generation of Shadyside killers making an appearance because it was lacking in this one in comparison to what we saw in part 1 where we had multiple killers. But Tommy Slater as a standalone and the origin story of him was fantastic. The lore was great. It just answered a lot of the questions that I was wondering about from the first one. And with that being said, I'm gonna give this film 3.5 bug baths out of 5.
As always, thank you for watching. Like this video and comment below with your thoughts on the film if you've seen it. If you haven't and you do want to check it out, it's on Netflix. Subscribe to it and subscribe to us to stay up to date with everything here on Bloodbath and Beyond.